Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude, Young Mystic, and welcome to this evening's Wacky Woo. With me, of course, is the one and only, the master of woo, Mr. Clif High. You can find his work, of course, on Twitter at Clif_High. You can find him at Clif High on his Substack. And, of course, you can find his latest book, The Brotherhood of the Afflicted, here on Amazon. Mr. High, Clif, welcome back to the show. How are you, man?
I'm doing fine. I'm still missing those damn disco toes, though.
Right.
No photos, you know.
I'll send you the pictures. We had a good time. Hey, Clif, I know I thanked you during the conference. You weren't there that day during my speech, but I wanted to take this opportunity as well, while you're here live with us, to thank you for that Singularity keynote address you gave on the Friday night. You really set the stage for the conference. And oddly enough, I think Universe was guiding and providing as well, because we had three themes: alchemy, consciousness, and finance. And each of the keynote speakers, including yourself and the rest of the presenters, all had a different aspect of consciousness, finance, and alchemy to bring to the conference, but they all meshed together in a one very important and very powerful unit. And it was just absolutely amazing. The energies were through the roof. And again, I just wanted to thank you both for giving me that keynote address, but also for giving me that shot. Many years ago, you were my first guest on YouTube, and here we are now at the woo beginnings of a brand new cycle of time, and you're here with me this evening. Thank you, Clif.
Sure. No worries, guy. You're most welcome.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching us tonight. We are triple casting right now on YouTube, Twitter, and X. Clif, if you feel we should cut off the YouTube feed, let me know at any time. I'll remove the feed. And for you guys watching live, also, we have quite a bit of notes this evening to share with you guys. So if you want to go to beyondmystic.net/singularity, I've put there all of the pictures, the graphics, and some of the growth conversations here that we're going to be sharing with you tonight on this topic of singularity. Now, to preface the show, Clif, we are going to be, as I understand it here from your notes, having a very adult conversation. Can you set the stage for that a little bit here, just to make sure that we're not ruffling any feathers and that people understand that we are trying to better navigate here what's in front of us for the highest good here of humanity? Cliff.
It's okay. So it's difficult to hear, or it's also difficult to give criticism about things that are in motion. Okay, that are actually occurring now. And so there are harsh things that need to be said about the way that officialdom is handling our time now, because by the time we get to some of these graphics, you'll see why I'm saying this, right? And so it's my intent to be harsh where necessary, such that if we can get officialdom's attention, they may understand they have this little tiny window in which to make changes, and I'll discuss how that occurs as we go on. So the intention is not to be critical. The intention is to be harsh in order to get the attention, in order to provide solutions that they are unable to see at this point. And I'll explain why they can't see them.
Okay, very good. Now, in the last number of years, Clif, you were very adept at naming and segmenting different tranches of time in the event stream. Why did you do that? And why is it helpful for the conversation tonight for us to understand where we are now in time? For example, you had hypernovelty, you talked about discontinuity, and then, of course, tonight we're talking about singularity. Can you maybe take 5 minutes to go back a little bit, see how we got to here right now, Clif?
I used to in the past, when writing the reports, I would segment time by the way that we do it within the materium, within the paradigm of the materium that's generally applied. You know, this month, that month, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. But the data doesn't segment itself that way, and I'll explain that as we go along. The data segments itself by sets. Many of these sets would have common words used in different approaches within each different set. So the same word would have an applicability to that set that was different from all of the others. But there was this, it was like fish on a string, right? You could identify all the fish by naming the string, so to speak, right? And so hypernovelty was such a string. It was stringing all these data sets together into this collection. This became very useful because humans actually think this way. So it's easier for us to characterize a particular time as, oh, that's the secrets revealed time, which we're in right now. That's a subset of this larger set that we're in. And so you can think about this complexity. It's a complexity. It's not simple. It's not complicated. It's more than both, okay? And so we can think about it in these various different ways. So you could say, I'm examining this time now from the secrets revealed perspective, which is different from this other perspective of being the tail end of hypernovelty, becoming aware, or the awareness of hypernovelty within the population. And so you can define the way you're viewing it with these labels that I've applied. I apply these labels because the words are within all of these sets. And within all of these sets, they're either a primary, secondary, or tertiary descriptor, and they have their own subsets. So they have to meet a certain qualification in order to rise up to be a label to a function of time. And then I need to see that the wording follows through into more maturation as the event stream comes at us. So in other words, we can't have a one-off that's, you know, flashy and that sort of thing as a label. It's in the way I do this, it's got to persist all the way through that period.
Okay, and for the people who might not have been watching, there's brand new people every day coming into the Woo. As you had described many years ago, they were dropping off of that matrix timeline into the Woo here, and they might not know the description values of what you had for hypernovelty, for discontinuity. Can you explain a little bit what that was so they can kind of look back and say, oh, that's what he meant about 2-3 years ago, to set the stage for where we're going now here into singularity? So.
Okay, so it's easiest to see with the discontinuity, okay? Because in discontinuity, the people that were following the Woo no longer paid any attention at all to mainstream media and all of the spew coming out of academia or anything coming out of officialdom or normie land, right? Where all the normies live. And so there was this disconnection between these groups of people. As one started moving ahead and the other gets stymied in this old paradigm that's not going anywhere. The discontinuity was a point of separation for what would ultimately become, what ultimately will become sci-fi world, leaving the old paradigm behind, right? And the old paradigm, however you want to describe it, but basically, in my way of thinking, it's the gritology. People basing science on the idea that if all consciousness left the universe, the grit would still remain, the stars, the dirt, the dust, the water, all of that. And this is a wrong think. It's a wrong way of thinking about our materium, and it's easily disproved. So the gritology is the old dying paradigm in my view. And we're coming into the new paradigm, which is the ontology, which is an aspect of the singularity. And at the moment, the time we're entering into, I've titled the summer of emergence. And it's actually more than summer. It goes through fall and goes all the way into December. But basically, the emergence comes out as we move into summer. And the emergence is the emergence of the singularity to start dominating conversations. And the singularity has to be understood as not being what Elon Musk and officialdom and the techie guys see, okay? They see it as AI singularity, that somehow AI will become sentient or intelligent or some damn thing. And that's not
what you're talking about here. No.
No. That'll never happen. No computer can ever be sentient. AI can never be aware. There's no self there. It's really dumb. Anything for AI has to be previously written down. It can't be creative. It can't create anything new. But AI is a tool. We will use this tool in our shift into the ontology paradigm, okay, into the paradigm that's emerging in this singularity. The paradigm that's emerging into the singularity can be characterized in three parts: the eternal now, the event stream, and the ontology. The ontology is easily described as this concept. Supreme consciousness exists. It's everything. It knows everything. It is all. And nothing exists outside of supreme consciousness. And then supreme consciousness has an idea and asks itself, can something exist that I don't know anything about ahead of its existence, right?
Right.
So something new, novelty, as Terence McKenna described it. He thought the singularity would hit in 2012 because of the Mayan calendar. Okay, he didn't understand that it's more tied to yugas and that the Mayans had their own concepts that were not effectively applied to the way we keep track of duration, which everybody calls time. So Terence McKenna thought that this would happen in 2012. In fact, it's happening now. We're in that process at this moment. It's difficult to estimate how long the emergence of the singularity will go, but at least these next 2 years and maybe 5 or 10 years, depending on how difficult it is for the population to absorb it, because this is an aspect of that. It's not simply something happening because humans are participating in this. All right, this is where it gets really murky. We have to acknowledge that there's this thing that exists. This thing is called the observer effect. The observer effect is when two guys get together to perform an experiment, and they discovered that if two particular guys get together to perform that experiment, it goes one way. If two different guys get together to perform the experiment, it goes another way. And nobody can ever really explain it, but they label it the observer effect. The observer effect proves that the supreme consciousness is participating in our materium on a daily basis, because the observer effect is in all of our sciences. And it cannot be explained by the Gritologists. They can only label it. Okay, I can explain it easily because your consciousness is participating in that experiment, because we are only consciousness. There is no real matter. This is all an illusion. There's no time either. And this is where it gets really difficult for us to get into thinking and discussing this stuff. And this is an aspect of why the singularity and the emergence of the singularity may take years, because you have to get your head around it and think in an entirely different way in order to understand what's occurring. But to drop back for a second, let me state that AI is not driving this. It's not even really participating. It's just a tool that we'll use to catalog some of the things that we're going to be observing. But it's not going to be able to actively participate. It's a backward-looking thing because it's software running on matter, which is powered by electricity, which is several steps away from the pulse, which powers everything.
Now, thank you for that. I appreciate that. For the people who may not have watched the shows in the last couple of years, you've had a couple of these aha moments where you saw yourself in the event stream. One of those famous moments, of course, also was in 2008, 2009, when you saw this presidential debate on a podcaster. And then eventually we got to see that, oh, that was actually Trump with Joe Rogan. The remote viewers looked at it as well. And since then, also, we are in basically a new era of time, and you've pegged that also as a specific tranche here in the event stream. Can you explain through the story here of that particular forecast, and also perhaps with your book, which also talks about these individuals who are going through time here, the Brotherhood of the Afflicted, and bring it into a context that people might understand a little bit more here, that, as you said, we are all part of consciousness and we're all participating in our shared reality, whether we know it or not.
Right. Most of us don't know it, and that's why it's so goofy.
Right.
Okay. So the Brotherhood of the Afflicted book deals with some of these subjects in the idea of continuation of will and memory. And basically, it discusses the concept with a central character who has memory attached to this body's life that existed, and the events that caused that memory existed before this body. So somehow, in the process of coming out of his long sleep, the memories get attached to this body's life. We can't go into how that happens, or we can go into it, but it's meaningless and distracting at this stage. Okay, so that's an aspect of that was included in the book to get an idea across to basically teenagers and stuff, right? People that need to see this now in order to affect their lives, so they'll think, aha, this is like that. This is like reading that in that book, right? This is like what happened there. And so we need to get that across. We need to get it to a lot of people such that these kids will understand that the world that they're going to be growing up in has actually schismed from the world that they were born into. and that schism is happening right now. Some of them are going to be near adults. They'll take these memories with them. 5 or 10 or 15 years from now, they'll have an aha moment, and they'll say, aha, I understand, right? This makes sense. I now know how to navigate this, because it's a very tricky concept. We've been bamboozled by our understanding, or by the words that have been applied to our experience of our lives in this modern time. Okay, we apply the words time inappropriately. We all different kinds of things relating to time and our life's experience here are applied inappropriately to the actual reality. Getting to that reality is going to be very difficult, and that's what this singularity is all about. Okay, so in the singularity, there is the event stream, the eternal now, and then the ontology. None of these things are independent of us. We participate in them, as I was shocked to discover myself in my own forecasts that would appear about the Joe Rogan stuff, right? Right. Okay, because I saw the forecast in 2008, wrote it up later, and we get to the point where a whole series of events were triggered by my seeing that and understanding that I was part of it as those events progressed. So very difficult to understand here. But so I saw it in 2008, talked about it in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Then we have a manifestation, a physical matter thing that occurred with Rogan, saying that he was going to interview Trump for 2020, but it never happened. Then we go through 21, 22, 23. It does happen in 24. Again, it's a physical matter thing. The two of them met and this sort of thing. It was a manifestation of the event stream that should occur. And I had been talking about that coming manifestation since 2008. With the idea of this podcast, I won't even go to the details. I've got plenty of videos about it. But the issue is that so we all participate in the event stream because the ontology talks to us. And I happen to see the ontology talking to me because I am sensitized to that by having done the software, writing it in 1993 through 97, running those first reports and agonizing over what the hell I'm actually seeing, and then slowly developing the process up through 2004 or 5. And then we started really get rolling, right? Okay, so it's an issue of sensitization of our mind. And so this is a good place to segue over to this. It's going to be difficult for me to get this out in a meaningful fashion. I'm having the ontology speak to me now. It speaks to me every day, okay? Speaks to lots of people I know every day because their minds are sensitized to be able to pick this up. I don't use tarot cards, but if I were good at that, I could. I don't use astrology, but if I were good at that, I could. I happen to use the computers to get this stuff, but now the ontology has skipped all of that and it's talking to me directly because my mind is sensitized to seeing it talk through the reality that's emerging, through the event stream appearing in front of me, right? And so here's a recent example. So I have a girlfriend, Heidi. We were talking about my need for a new house. Okay, I've had this need for some time. This place I'm in now has many structural issues that have to be dealt with and is inadequate for anything other than a vacation house. It's not some place I can really set up and do work. It's been difficult to do the work here with some of it out in the other building, et cetera, et cetera. So I need a new place. So I'm talking to Heidi about it, and we discuss things about like the astro. Let me back up. Heidi's very skilled as a Vedic astrologer. Vedic astrology, in my opinion, is more accurate because it takes a more rational view of our solar system with the sun as the center of everything, not the earth. Western astrology uses geocentric, earth-centric astrology, looking at everything from the perspective of standing on this earth. Vedic astrology takes looking at all of the energies of universe that are coming on in from the perspective of our sun moving through that universe and dragging the planets behind it. So we have a view that includes our sun, but is greater than our sun from a Vedic perspective because we know we're standing on the earth, but we're not limiting ourselves to the perspective from the earth relative to the constellations and the alignment. So right. It's more accurate in many different regards than Western. So anyway, so I talked to Heidi about the astrology of all of this. I got to get this house, right? And also I need to set up recording studios so I can do audiobooks. And Heidi's been helping me with that as well. Anyway, so we're talking. Now, I'm going to reverse a lot of my example here. Okay, so I'm going to use an example that did not happen, but something very similar to that happened, but it's all reversed so that I don't betray any personal information that could come back to haunt us. Okay, so the setup is that I'm thinking about buying a house. I'm watching some of the stream you did, and I see Janine up there being bossy britches. Okay, she's bossy britches to the universe. She wants this stuff to happen right now. And I'm laughing, I'm rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off. Okay, but then it dawns on me, I wonder if that shit works. so
it's worked for her.
Yeah. Right. So I take her approach, not how she held her hands or any of that.
Right.
But I started getting demanding on universe because I've been diddling around on this house for years trying to find a place. It's always something, you know, there's some major problem with all the houses that come available. Anyway, so I took Janine's word to heart, and then I did a demand on universe, and lo and behold, next time I go, which was like an hour later, to look at available houses, because my mind had been altered by her thoughts, I went ahead and looked at areas that I hadn't looked at before, and lo and behold, there's this house. It's like, oh, this is a cool place, you know? Mm-hmm. And it has all these things that would work for me. And it's like, there's not a whole lot to dislike about this place. There's a couple of questions and so on. So I pursue it. And so I show the house to Heidi, and she says, oh, yeah, that's pretty good too. You know, she looked at it and couldn't see anything that was essentially negative. Now, what you have to understand is that before all of this occurred, like weeks ago, there was a conversation that I had with Heidi. In that conversation, I referenced my little bison here, okay, my little stuffed bison. It wasn't really the bison, and it really didn't happen this way, but a physical object was referenced in a conversation between the two of us. That physical object was atypical to a normal, ordinary discussion. The words being used were atypical from something that we would normally discuss, right? It would be like as if we'd suddenly just started talking about kookaburra birds, you know, just something you wouldn't do. So there was this word, and I was sensitized to this particular word. Let's just say that that word was represented by the bison, and that the word was bison. And it is as though, in looking at that house, all of a sudden, whoa, that house that I'm thinking about buying has a bison in it. And characteristics of the bison that are in that house are shocking because those characteristics reflect what we were discussing. Now, it was something that was emblematic of Heidi, not myself, right? But nonetheless, the fact that I had been sensitized to that word, and that out of the blue, in this house that should not have a bison in it, there's a bison in it, right? And so everybody would say, oh, synchronicity, isn't that odd? Well, I'm saying that's the ontology talking to me about a bunch of events. First, understanding that Janine's approach sort of works, and then following it through, and then having been sensitized because I paid attention to what Heidi was saying, I was sensitized to the word, and boom, there it is. And so is this an episode of the ontology saying, hey, go get that. Go buy that house. I'm taking it that way, right? And we'll see how that proceeds, because you have to do this step by step by step. And just because the ontology speaks to you doesn't necessarily mean you're interpreting what it's saying correctly, right? And there is no such thing.
Speak to the coincidence here.
Yeah, I'd say there is no such thing as coincidence in an ontology. So the idea is that the Supreme Consciousness wanted to know if novelty could exist. Well, how's it going to figure that out? How could the Supreme Consciousness that knows everything, create novelty? Well, it did it through us. We are the living experiment of the Supreme Consciousness trying to create something new that it could not have known about. And it leads to this phrase, universe provides and guides, okay? Because everything we have here is provided to us by universe. And if you're smart enough, you see that universe continues to guide you in your daily activities for all of your life, that it participates. It wants you to be successful in aiding it in the creation of novelty, creating something new. So a minor newness was created because I paid attention to Heidi, because I became sensitized to that word, because we had used this Vedic astrology thing to get my mind sensitive to it. And then because of seeing Janine, and you see how all of the coincidences pile on to lead to this particular conclusion, oh, that house is perfect. So, you know, it is not an accident, and there is no such thing as meaningless coincidence. There's tons of coincidence, but it's all meaningful. You just have to be able to extract the meaning in order to continue and pursue it, right? And then the more you do, the more you go down the rabbit hole, so to speak. But it's really the more you're engaging in the conversation with the ontology to bind to what it's saying, to find yourself directed. And this is not like mind control. This is not like we're in a simulation or any of that kind of stuff. The ontology, I call it the ontology. So the minute that the Supreme Consciousness wanted to know if it could create novelty, it became the ontology seeking the limits of its own existence. Can it or can it not create novelty? If it cannot, it knows the limits of its existence. If it can, it doesn't know the limits yet of its existence, and that's what we're here for. Right. And we are actually, all billions of us are like a billion neural net monsters eating up reality to come up with a creative newness. And so we participate. The universe wants us to succeed in this. It wants us to aid it in getting to the point of creating novelty, and then to create more of it and more of it and more of it, and see how far we go with it, right?
Right.
Makes sense?
That's where all the magic happens.
Correct.
Now,
but it's not magic. It's not that weird fucking magic, right? It's actually a science that you can extract from the ontological paradigm with math and shit. And you don't need constants. Planck's constant goes away. The Einstein, all of his constants, they're all fudge factors, and they just disappear once you have your paradigm on right.
Right. Now, before we go too far here, some people in the chat might go, oh, you know, Clif he's a master of woo. He's been at this forever. He's got the Alta reports. His mind is sensitized to it, as you just said. Janine has her tarot. Heidi has her Vedic astrology. The other girls have the tarot cards as well. But I'm not like that, Clif. I don't hear universe. What would you say to those people? Because we hear it all the time, and I see people think, "Oh, I had an intuition," but I went, nah. I just went on with my life, right? And I was like, "Dude, you got it. It was talking to you. You just ignored it, right?"
Right.
So speak to that here for people watching the show. Like, how can you encourage them to really pay attention to those little signs by universe? What would be the first 2 or 3 steps you would say to increase their ability to listen?
The very first thing is to realize that it's not meaningless. To realize that indeed your intuition is providing you a conduit to speaking with the ontology. Okay, right. So that's the very first thing. The gritologists, the academics, they'll all say it's bullshit and woo is meaningless. Well, okay, so woo is meaningless, but I've made people millionaires because I was able to see in advance. I saw cryptos emerging in 1997 in that very first run as new money. And then later on, we get them. So, you know, so I don't think of it as meaningless at all. And I see the gritology paradigm falling away because it is meaningless and it doesn't give me my floating RV, but the ontology will. All right, so I'll be able to get a floating RV as a result of this new science, and fairly rapidly, because this new science does not have a lot of the barriers inbuilt to it that come along with the gritology. Now, people can sensitize their own minds to this by reading Japanese yoga. Okay, so I got into this business here because I came into contact with the idea of Shinshin Soitsu Do, which is in a book called Japanese Yoga. You can find a Kindle version on Amazon. I got into that at age 17. Okay, so I've been doing this for well over 50 years. And it provides your mind a frame of reference to be able to examine what is being presented to you. Yeah, great book. It has exercises, the whole thing. It's important you do the exercises so that you understand that you need mind, body, harmony, and coordination, integration in order to be able to integrate with the universe. We are analog computers, okay? In fact,
could it be also that the exercises, when you move your body, it's basically you're kind of like tuning an antenna like you would do on the TV, that your body is part of it somehow also?
Yeah, your body is part of it, but that's a very crude aspect of it. When you shift your body, you should shift from the center, and you're shifting your energies from your hara, from the dandian. And it is because you learn to shift in particular ways that you could tune your frequency, so to speak, right? Not be half in one and half in another. You would step right to that next one. It's difficult. You get a body feeling for it as you do these exercises over the years. I'm 72 and I still do them daily, right? Still do my Aikido exercises. Now, Shinshin Soitsu Do is the art of understanding universe and interacting with it. I practice Shinshin Soitsu Aikido, which is mind-body harmony that leads you to that understanding, that ability. It's not that difficult to get this idea working for you. If you go into Japanese yoga, you need not be formalistic. You don't have to have a new religion. It is a practical, step-by-step series of things to do in order to be able to use this as a power in your life. You know, and here's the thing. The event stream, okay, so time does not exist as we understand it. There is no future, there is no past. Past is memory. We can't ever go to the past. We can never extract anything out of the past. It's not another room. And the future is anticipation. Future is it's a wrong word to apply to the event stream, but that's basically what it's discussing. It's what's going to happen in your life and sort of when, okay, the distance between this understanding of now and when something might manifest to you. The event stream presents itself in different ways to us depending on how we're paying attention. So if your mind is not aware and you're not really living in the now and you're thinking about the future and you're driving along and stuff, all of a sudden you get that accident and you're not prepared. Right. But if your mind is prepared, you may be just driving along and all of a sudden you see a bird or something and you know that there's been a shift and you need to change your approach as to what's going on, and maybe you slow down. And so you avoid the accident, all because you happen to see a bird doing a particular thing. And that bird doing that thing is meaningful to you and meaningful to other people, but not necessarily in the same way if they should happen to see it, right? So universe talks to us through the same events in very unique, specific to each individual language. Just as universe talked to me about a bison, and it would not have been meaningful for all of the other people looking at that house to see that bison in there. It has no meaning to any of them, but it does have a great deal of meaning to me in that sense, right? It makes sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, we have a few visualization slides to share with you guys tonight to understand here the event stream and your place in it. Before I get to that, because we prefaced the show tonight by saying we're going to have an adult conversation, we're going to be a little bit critical of some of the officialdom players right now, just in order to be of help as the situation unfolds here, right? We're looking at the highest good for humanity. During my conference, I was also told beforehand and during the conference that we had some officialdom agents in the room, really intent on listening on what these people had to say in Ottawa at the Wu Beginnings conference. And I addressed it in my own fashion, but I want you to touch on it tonight. So I said something to the effect that, listen, we are not the destruction force here. The people who are talking about the Wu, the people who are talking about the event stream, the destruction force is happening in and of itself. You just described it earlier in the show with these yugas of time. A lot of the institutions that are in the control power matrix right now were born out of previous energies, and they're no longer supported in the new energies that are coming up. This is happening with or without our involvement in it. What we are trying to do, what you're trying to do here tonight as well, is to be that bridge or that vessel to bring that information from the past yuga of time into the new yuga of time so that we can build a better place on the other side of this, right? That's our role here collectively on Beyond Mystic. Can you also speak to those agents here watching the show tonight too, as a preface to some of the information and some of the critique that we are going to be offering them for their consideration tonight, Clif?
Right. Okay. So basically what we have here is a fundamental failure of paradigm. So officialdom cannot see what we in the Wu see. They label it Wu in order to be able to dismiss it out of hand and not ever have to deal with the fact that it's practical, it's producing results, people are living better, longer, et cetera, because of it. How many people in the Wu didn't take the shot and are not regretful, right?
Right.
So, and how many people in the Wu have been mining cryptos and doing all this stuff for a decade, right? And I created many millionaires because people paid attention to me.
Yeah.
So it is practical and it is useful. We are building the sci-fi world. Officialdom has a mental barrier. Officialdom has grit in their mind that prevents them from seeing the practical usefulness of swapping paradigms out. Even if this new paradigm is very difficult to get your head around and start using, if you do it in little bites and you start getting a hold of it, then it starts becoming more an aspect of what you're doing. Now, let us also say that every one of those security guys that ever had anything to do with Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, or any of these, or the Marines, or any of these elite outfits, they use the woo. They're taught to use their intuition. Intuition is just a very minor aspect of the woo, but that intuitive grasp allows you to speak with the ontology, which tells you, no, don't move. And then the bullet goes by, right? That sort of thing. Lots of people in war have those experiences where the ontology kept them alive. And I'm here to say that we are actually within the ontology. All right. So we are part of Supreme Consciousness. Supreme Consciousness created this by creating the illusion of matter and taking us and shoving our consciousness into this illusion of matter and keeping us in this illusion of matter. Then we go into our long sleep, still as consciousness, still alive, just without a body. And then we come back with another body, as is in the book, right? So it's all interconnected into a complexity. There is no part of it that you can examine that doesn't lead to all these other parts, unlike something that is simple and unlike something that is complicated. So the woo leads to money, it leads to consciousness, it leads to explorations in power, politics, contention, space aliens, ancient history, anything that we care to examine. So right now, we're in the midst of the woo as everybody in Normie Land is shocked about what's underneath the pyramids. And that's only the pyramids in Giza. They haven't even examined the pyramids in Alaska, Australia, California, et cetera, right? And the Grand Canyon. And so what the hell is under those? Well, some of the government knows, but let me get back to the officialdom here. Very briefly.
And my point also was, we are not the enemy here. And I just wanted to make that point again here today. Keep going.
That's what I was. That's just what I was going to say. That in my experience, there are grifters in the woo, but they're not really woo guys. They're gritologists that are trying to
pretend
woo and use it and get money out of you, basically, right? But you will find, in my experience, that a woo guy will be quite happy to help you out, no matter what, right? No matter if he thinks you are his potential enemy, he'll still help you out because you are also a fellow traveler within the ontology. You're a part of the ontology. Your movements, your talking, your interacting with him, even as a potential enemy, educates him, teaches him more about the ontology. It is the ontology speaking through that contention that is participating in that woo mind, and he wants to be involved with the ontology, right? So he wants that confrontation, that contention, not to beat you necessarily, but the greatest warrior is the fellow that can, with one motion, disarm and misdirect all the contention thereafter. You need not be in battle. So the officialdom needs to understand that we're here to help, and we'll be encouraging, but we can't do it for them. I cannot remove the grit out of their mind that prevents them from seeing the things that I can see. The more you study this, the better you are able to see into the event stream ahead of its manifestation in your life and in everybody else's life, right? So it's like being able to see the cow charging across the field, the broken fence, the road on the other side, and turn to the guy right here and say, wait a second, let's not go when the light turns. Let's let that, because they didn't necessarily see the cow charging across the field, go to tear through the fence and run across the road, right? And so you can be helpful by just pointing this stuff out. And it's sort of a conduit for you to get feedback from the ontology, because it really helps when you start getting, the bison warnings from the ontology saying, hey, dude, have a look, right? So the woo people that use the tarot, that use the astrology, like the customers, are inviting in that ontological perspective through an analog computer, somebody else's mind that has skills in these various arts, which are really sciences if you look at them from an ontological perspective. Makes sense?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's get into some of the visualizations. People don't understand how they can see in a visual way and perceive themselves through this event stream here. So the first graphic you sent me tonight, so let me see if I can bring that up on the screen for the audience. There you go. Cliff, explain what we're looking at here.
Okay, so this is how most people, most normies, and I'm not being denigrating, okay, and normie is just somebody that has not been educated, they've been schooled. They
Right.
see the grit only because that's all they've ever been told. And so a normie stands in what he thinks of in a sort of loose way as now, and he thinks that that now moves through time with him in it, okay? Now, it doesn't occur to him all the limitations that that view imposes, right? That it couldn't go backwards. There's no such thing as time travel, all of these other things, that the energy of the now and all of this kind of stuff that disputes a lot of grifters and their approaches in the woo. But this is his view. So he doesn't see the event stream, okay? He sees time as though the time, you know, a date, you know, April 12th is actually existent in this now. We just haven't somehow reached it. We haven't traveled far enough to reach it. And this is a wrong think. This is not how things actually work. But if you examine things from that perspective, you instantly limit your mind and your attention, and the idea can occur to you of random chance. So there's no random chance, there are no coincidences, and there's no accidents in an ontology. Everything has meaning and everything must happen in order for other things to happen, because there is no time, and everything that happens is the emergence out of the event stream of interconnected events that are caused by our decisions now. And we can actually affect how that event stream matures by the decisions we make now and how we make them. So let's go back to Bossy Britches for a second with her disco toes, okay?
Right.
So she's up there insisting that universe provide whatever it was in the example for her, right? And this is a legit approach to dealing with universe. Universe, you know, you don't have to worship it, the ontology or any of that. You can just interact with it. And so that is a very legitimate way to go about interacting with things. It leads to the idea of a law of attraction, which, if you see it from a gritology viewpoint, is, again, wrong think. But if you see the law of attraction or interacting with the ontology from Janine's viewpoint, then you understand you're having a conversation with Supreme Consciousness, and you're an aspect of that Supreme Consciousness. It's got to pay attention to you because you're part of it, it's part of you. And so things emerge, things manifest.
Would you say also that in those things manifesting are also the opportunities? For a lot of people, they say, hey, I never had the opportunity knocked. Is it because it didn't knock or because you didn't see it?
They didn't recognize it, right? They didn't see it.
Right. So that's the problem with this view here.
You can only see what is within your own awareness, right? If that awareness is polluted with a wrong view, you're going to see it, but you won't recognize it. And there's a big difference in those. That's most normies right there.
Okay.
Normies, okay, so they'll go through a progression. So the other slides here lead us to a progression. Okay. And so this is the first thing that occurs to them. They'll suddenly start seeing themselves outside of themselves, as though they see themselves within time moving forward. Usually that occurs to you at predictable points. Your Saturn return at age 27 to 30, right? You'll see yourself, all of a sudden you're no longer a kid, you've got adulthood facing you right there, certain changes are occurring in your life. So you suddenly start seeing yourself separate from yourself moving through time. Oh, it's like, what happened to me back then? And what will happen to me in the future, right? Again, as though there is random chance. It doesn't occur to you to think, what I do now at age 29 will affect what happens to me when I'm 39, when I have matured to that level, right? But that's really what comes from this viewpoint. And you start seeing in the background there, you start seeing the emergence of the event stream. You don't understand it, but you know that there's more to it than simply random chance and shit happening, right? And you start getting a better view for it. And it is there that when you start seeing yourself separate, yourself in the now, separate from yourself through time, that you have the opportunity to drop that view of time and just see yourself in the now. And the first thing that will occur is that you'll see the now as somehow being separate from your own consciousness. That's the next slide there. Okay,
before I go to the next slide, is there circumstances on the planet to where you can collapse time to see this, like to force you to see this, like for example a car accident where everything slows down and you kind of see yourself, or you see people say, oh, I saw my whole life play out
Flash
before
before me,
myself. They
right?
realize that they're watching a movie of themselves. Is that
Right.
another example of how you can get to this view?
That exactly. Okay, so those extreme uh, events, because they're not accidents or anything, those extreme events are intended to cause that effect in you, to cause your mind to change, because there are no accidents, and the ontology has presented you an extreme event in order that something may occur from that. No,
Right.
there are no coincidences, right? So the fact that you had that shock, if you dwell into it, you would probably learn a hell of a lot more about yourself in this now than it's going to tell you about where you were or the rest of your life, etc. Right?
Right.
The shock can wake people up. So you'll notice that in enlightenment experiences, modern or ancient, it doesn't matter. I'm thinking of Sadhguru at the moment. He's all weft up, but nonetheless, his enlightenment experience was legit. And the thing that he wrote in the initial description of it was the shock of it. You know, he was just sitting there, and all of a sudden, it hit him as though he'd taken vast quantities of psychedelics or something in his mind, and he sat basically in the same place in a square or in a small village and cried for 3 days during this period of time of his enlightenment experience. And this is not atypical. It is very common that when you are presented with this view, you get peace and comfort. Okay, again, that's in the book Brotherhood of the Afflicted. I get into the aspects of that, and this is a book series. I'm working on number 2 now, and we're going to go through number 5 in order to tie all these things together and to bring you a cohesive view of all of it. I'm just releasing it individually as books, as opposed to writing them all and then releasing them all as a big book, that sort of thing, right?
Okay, so we have those like big dramatic events, and you just mentioned psychedelics. Those perhaps are the first gateway also to seeing yourself outside of the time bubble as we're presenting here.
And the reason that occurs is because those shocking traumatic events do something to your body. They flush you with some level of chemicals and hormones that your body does not have in its normal state, right? So you get the adrenaline rush, you get all of these various different aspects of it. And remember, adrenaline can cause DMT to be released out of the pineal gland. So that's why you'll have people in car wrecks say, you know, wow, everything is really bright, you know, that kind of thing, right? Because they're suffering those effects at the moment.
Right.
Okay, and also things you do to your body, psychedelics, meditation of particular kinds. Not every meditation practice does this, but certain types will do things to alter the hormonal relationship in your body and will change your mind as a result of that. And so, yes, that can all participate in it. And it shocks you to the point where your vision of yourself and your mind is never the same afterwards. You can fight it, you can go back and not pay attention to it and stuff, but in my opinion, that's the wrong way to approach it. Although avoidance is a legitimate thing, because this can be so traumatic and it is so difficult. The real people don't live in normie land, right? And so we're frequently rejected by normies, you know, all of this kind of thing. I've had problems with normies all my life. And lots of people do, simply because we don't speak the same, we speak the same language, but we don't have the same connotations for the words we're using. Right. They say woo like it's a bad thing.
And it was funny because, you know, a couple of years ago, I was in Ottawa reporting on the Freedom Convoy, and the Prime Minister called us the fringe minority. And I'm like, well, we're not the fringe minority anymore. Everybody's joining the woo now. So they're coming to this conversation. It's absolutely fabulous to see.
Now, okay. Also, let's speak about that, okay? So you and I had an ontological experience about you doing that reporting before it occurred, months ahead of that, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of back channel stuff between you and I that confirms the ontology speaks to both of us, because I was able to see you in the data, because I was able to give you forecasts of this stuff, not understanding the details, and that we can get into why that occurs later on, but nonetheless being able to give you a heads up, you know, and so you knew to, at least at that point, you had a wider potential range of options because you were not thinking of it as just random chance.
Right. at the point you freaked me the fuck out, and then after I calmed down, I opened my scope of vision in terms of what was hitting me in the event stream. It very much helped me and propelled me through that time, and it brought me to where we are today in the Woo Beginnings conference. It was all coming back together. Speaking of the Woo Beginnings conference, you want to see some disco toes, Cliff?
Yes, I do. Whoa!
That was Janine there looking at the beautiful Tartarian buildings there in the back with her disco toes during the conference.
Where's the disco toes? Now I know.
Now we know, yes. And quite a few people had disco toes at the event as well. I think somebody did a hashtag for it, but I'm not sure if I saw the pictures. But anyways, if I find them, we'll do another episode on that. Okay, Cliff, let's move to the next phase out of this one here. Let me see if I can scroll down for the audience. Here we go.
Okay, so this is when you see the event stream manifesting, but you still think of it as outside of yourself, outside of your eternal now, as though it is something external and chance, right? That is not actually interacting with you. You see the marvel of it. You see things start to manifest in your own mind. You can reach through and grab something and bring it back in like a law of attraction kind of a thing. It works. You do it again. You do it again. You get more. You don't understand every time you reach in and pull something out of the event stream, you're causing karma to exist, because karma is the power that causes the event stream to split and function, basically. Okay, so you involve yourself with karma at every time you do this, but from the outside, you're not seeing yourself as participatory. You're seeing yourself as, in a sense, as exploitive. Okay, so the people that would run the law of attraction are not participating with the ontology.
You say exploited or exploitive?
No, exploitive. Okay,
Yes.
so you're trying to exploit the event stream. You're trying to, get the gold or the treasure or whatever out of it, right? You don't understand that you're actually interacting with the ontology, and it's permitting you to make these mistakes, because maybe your mistakes will help create novelty. This is why there's suffering, okay, is that there should be decisions and change. You don't have to participate in the suffering. You have to have the suffer. You have to have the pain or whatever, but you need not take it on as suffering if you have the appropriate view. So, it's labor, it's laborious. Built myself back, I'm doing pretty good. And it was laborious, but it wasn't suffering because I didn't choose to see it that way, to participate with it that way. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, so go ahead.
Would you see also here maybe potential people in officialdom or in positions of power having reached this level of understanding to where they're trying to manipulate the world around them, not understanding that they might be doing that to their own detriment also? How do you connect with you?
Correct. And also they're doing it through a level of ignorance, because they're still seeing it as though there's chance that there is a non-meaningful coincidence, that sort of thing, right? Even though they intend to take advantage of it and do stuff with it and manipulate it, they don't see themselves as being immersed in it and participating in it and being affected by that very participation. Because you observe it, you change it, okay? It changes. If you think about the observer effect, why does that experiment decide to change because you and I are doing it as opposed to Janine and Meg, right? It's a different result because we're doing it. Well, it's because we're participating in it, but we're causing that through our consciousness. But at the same time, that is the ontology watching us watch it.
Right.
That's why it changes, because it's aware of our consciousness interacting with it, okay? And this is where it leads you to, if you pursue the observer effect and all this stuff, you understand that your consciousness is interacting with supreme consciousness in the form of the ontology, in the form of the manifestation of the matter around us. And so it talks to you through matter, right? Through these images, emblems, and matter. It need not talk to you through the cards, but they are emblematic. They're material. Same thing with astrology, the charts, the stars, the suns, etc. If you know how to map those, you get a framework. So the difference between so leave that there for a second. Okay. Somebody doing the throwing taro or doing the I Ching, or even examining the guts out of a dead rabbit or whatever, right? Entrail reading, all of these various forms of divination are an attempt to take that image right there and collapse it down to what's going to manifest right now. Okay, so what we're looking at is this guy seeing the event stream as a field of potential. He doesn't know which one of those things are going to manifest, but one of them will. If you do the tarot right, you're basically interacting and doing the tarot or the astrology, etc., with that event stream as the potential starts to collapse. So you get a heads up, so to speak, okay? But you're also participating in it. You have to understand that because you're doing the cards, it's talking to you, but it's also watching you watch it. And it's going to change as a result of that. So no tarot reader will be 100% accurate, okay? No astrologer will be 100% accurate in every given instance because the universe needs to have uncertainty and the ability for the event stream to split and fracture based on newness. Makes sense? It's difficult to get these ideas across.
It makes me think of that song from the 80s. I've got this feeling somebody's watching me. Universe, right? Like, universe is watching me, watching me. I'm just like, it's getting really trippy. Okay,
and it's ever so much easier just to talk to it. Right? Like Janine does.
Yes.
Do it now. Do it now.
Yes. What do you call her again? Bossy Britches?
Bossy Britches, yeah.
All right. So let's get to the next understanding here.
Okay, so I was always hoping that there was somebody in the Trump officialdom that was at this stage, okay, that saw the event stream emerging, could see the interconnectedness of the karma powering the event stream. That's what all those little lines are connecting the dots, and see it within their bubble of universe that's all around them that we call in the woo world, in the ontology perspective, we call it the eternal now. So bear in mind here, I'm quite correct, and you cannot prove me wrong on this, but there is no future and there is no past. What we call now is eternity. So we are living within and acting within eternity for all of our lives, for all of the duration that we feel in our lives. So we are eternal and we are living in that eternal right now. The woo guys, the ontology guys, we label this as the eternal now. I like to also use the phrase ever present now, because this instant is also the same instant in the Pleiades or in some other galaxy so far away we don't even know that it exists. It's the same now. It's ever present, as well as being eternal. And so this, I was hoping, was where somebody in officialdom is at. I don't think that that's the case anymore, because the Trump guys have made too many mistakes that they need not have. Huge mistakes that have altered their manifesting of the event stream and what's coming to them. And if they continue with this in this same way, not understanding what's occurring nor their place within that occurrence, it's going to get worse for them. This obviously is something that universe wants. The ontology wants them to experience this and to see this and to come to these various different conclusions as they do see this.
Can I ask you to backtrack just a little bit?
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Wait. So I need to note then that, of course, the ontology created me, as with all of us. The ontology created my awareness for this time. It created me as a raspy bastard with a loud voice, such that people may hear. So obviously, in my mind, the ontology wants some level of potential that officialdom should hear and understand this, right? So in other words, there is no accident. The ontology is actually trying to talk to these fuckers. They're just too dumb to see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, no, thanks for that. I just want to backtrack a couple of years. When Q made its first debut, I remember you had I think it was on the BitChute at the time, you had created a video suggesting it was kind of like defined as the poet of war or something like that.
Right.
And so Q, if you look at some of the deltas of time, would suggest that at some point, some ability of this was in the mix here or in the pre-planning of what was happening in the United States. Now that Trump is in the administration, do you not think that that is still part of it? Or maybe it's part of it, but they cannot deal with it because it has severe ramifications. If you look at your Twitter in the last couple of days, you're like, they can't talk about this because it leads to that. They can't talk about this. They can't fix that because it leads to that. So is it as much as they don't have this, or right now they're stuck between a rock and a hard place? What's your gut feeling?
Okay, so I believe that it's my understanding, so it's a conclusion, it's not a belief. My conclusion that the Q stuff was probably, I'll say probably at this stage, involving AI and predictive linguistics at some level, okay? They still have it, it still functions, but as you say, they are between a rock and a hard place because they have to manage the normies and the normie impressions and all of that normie world. They're in essence trying to manage us through a series of crises. They don't understand this even, that there's going to be an emergence. They think of it as the golden age, so maybe they do have somebody telling them some level of stuff. The problem is, in my understanding now, that the people that have to make all these decisions are gritologists. And so they don't really see a lot of this, right? And a lot of people are actually, that do see it, are in denial of it because of religious bents, because their mind has been warped by their religion being a gritology religion.
Or there's still some of them very much compromised by some of the Mossad ops, like the Epstein Island stuff and all that, and they cannot talk about it.
Right, right. So so there's so many layers because it's a complexity. And so there will be overriding actions, but individual motivations for those actions at various different levels. Just like with neural nets trying to create an AI itself. They each individually eat chunks of code and spit out a conclusion. Then others eat all of those conclusions and spit out another conclusion, et cetera, each independent, but also each acting on the same level of motivation as it applies to them. So you're going to find bad actors and this kind of stuff, and there's a huge amount of denial. And so that is the problem at the moment. So as an example, right? If we had one significant person in the Epstein operation that was arrested and incarcerated, only one. If we'd had one of these individuals arrested and incarcerated with an explanation of why they were being arrested, most of the Doge guys, probably most of their work would not have needed to have been done. Okay, so they're attempting, in my opinion, to go at this from another way, right? They're attempting to whittle away the resources from all of these power players, but they didn't quite see the opportunity that was in front of them back when Trump and these people first started coming on in. And in that period of opportunity, because everything was new and everything was powerful because of that newness, they could have done minor acts that would have ballooned out the potential within the event stream very much wider. They chose to nibble at the edges in a reductionist fashion. So that's what I see with the Doge guys. They're like the gritologist scientists that have to reduce it all down to grit in order that their mind might understand it. And in so doing, they lose the idea of complexity, so they don't understand it at all. And they have to invent things like constants. You know, the speed of light is constant or something like this, right? So, so I had thought that there was somebody in there in the Trumpitos administration that saw the event stream and as it's manifesting within there now. There may be somebody there, and that person may be able to see this using AI and this kind of stuff, but not have an appropriate understanding that they're actually interacting with the ontology and implementing an aspect of the observer effect in so interacting with it. And they can't get this idea across to the other people that are the policymakers. And so the policymakers are choosing the least risky, the path of least resistance, and this kind of stuff, rather than the single bold move that would cause the whole thing to happen. Okay, so there was this guy in history. He was a weird fellow. He was a soldier, he was a warrior, we call him El Cid. He was at the tail end of what was known as the Reconquista, where the Europeans kicked out the Moors, the Muslims, forced them all back to Africa, which they're going to have to do again. And that will reoccur. El Cid was an interesting guy because he was not religiously bound. Okay, he would fight for whoever paid for him, and then at some point he was so good at fighting he decided to become his own king. He set his sight on a particular city in the south of Spain. He was going to take over the city and declare himself to be the duke of it, right? And in doing so, he said, well, there's a lot of Muslims in there. So he told all the Muslims in the city, I got no problem. You can be a Muslim. I don't give a shit, but you got to follow these rules. Then he told the Christians, and then he told the Catholics, and then he told all these other groups, the same thing. And he said, I'm not against all of you, but I'm going to conquer your city. And he told them all this while he was outside the city and his army is building and all of this kind of stuff. He took the city without a fight. It just capitulated because of the way that he approached it, because of his interaction with it. The Trumpitos guys don't see that such a bold move. They don't see the results that could occur from such a bold move, whereas El Cid did. He had a small army. He was very, very experienced. He could have destroyed the city without too much trouble because, city dwellers are not good soldiers necessarily, right? But he also knew that he needed the people and he needed the city, and he truly was non-dominational, so to speak, in his religious viewpoint. So that bold move of getting out from the army, going out with one person ahead of it, and he walked out to a midway capitulate and live, and I will treat you fairly. And he did. And he was famous throughout the region and blah, 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 right? Because he was true to what he was saying at the time. His vision was solid. So in my opinion, and that's what I was actually hoping for, was that the Trumps would come on in and do a couple of strategic moves and the whole thing would collapse. It's collapsing now. It's somewhat managed. It's not going to go as fast nor as far as they need, and they're going to be overtaken by events. The problem with so go back to that image for a second. The problem for the officialdom right there is that as you see the observer effect comes into play with the ontology itself and the event stream. So as you are seeing it at the potential field collapse into manifestation, your consciousness is affecting that manifestation. The Trump people don't understand that. Okay, they don't understand that their consciousness is intruding on these events and results that are ongoing, and it's causing specific things to occur within the event stream that's still potential to manifest to us. And so they're missing these great opportunities. Maybe they will get there, but I don't think so, because we're facing this issue. The issue is that the event stream is not a constant. Okay, so we think of time as a constant, but it is not. And you know it from personal experience. The car wreck, when everything happens in a half of a second, and yet that half of a second seems wider than whole weeks, right? Yeah. Or like Lenin says, there's, years where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen, right? That's an impression of time that is not your normal one. But it goes to the idea that time is not a steady state kind of a deal. And time, as we understand it, is only the event stream providing happenings and manifestations to us in order that we might make decisions about those and create further fracturing and splitting of the event stream. So I'm very much afraid, or I'm not afraid, I'm convinced at this stage that the Trump administration is still operating within a gritology viewpoint, and thus they are missing huge amounts of potential. Now, the problem is that the event stream will pile on, so to speak, and all of a sudden you're in a crisis. We're coming up into that period now.
We're going to look at your charts a little bit later with the emotional values coming up here. Let's get into the last visual
sure.
For the audience first. Explain what we're looking at here, Clif.
So this is consciousness within the event stream. All of the orange, bright, flamey stuff on top is the energy coming in from supreme consciousness that we call the event stream that manifests into our reality. We are that glowy bit down at the bottom that's receiving this event stream. We do not actually have bodies. Prove it to yourself at that point. You become an energy being. Because that's all we really are. The matter is an illusion. That illusion is encapsulated here by the sphere. That is the illusion that the ontology is putting on us to perceive the event stream a specific set of ways in order that, in its thinking, novelty may come out of us perceiving the event stream impacting us. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Keep going.
Well, I was just going to say, so the other aspect of this is that you can see that from this illustration, and the illustration, of course, is crude, it's in the materium and all of this kind of stuff, but nonetheless, it gets the idea across that there's no real point of separation between your consciousness and the event stream. So our lives, our body's life experience is that floaty layer where the event stream impacts consciousness. And that's all we have, and that's all we ever are. But it is obviously adequate to what we need and what we will express as our body's life.
Mm-hmm. And how many glimpses of this have you had, Cliff, with your psychedelic experiences through life? Have you seen this? Have you
Oh
felt
yeah,
this?
yeah, oh, yeah. You live this. Okay, so
Yeah.
to go into hyperspace. Okay, so if you go to caves in Mexico, and even in California, you'll find these petroglyphs, drawings on the side of caves. I've seen them in Colorado as well, on the other side of the Grand Canyon. Okay, when we were going on a fishing trip back before they shut it off. And in there, you'll see drawings chipped into the side of the cave or drawn with dyes of humans with the fingers separating from the segments of the fingers separating from each other and all of this. The body is lying there horizontal and it's separating out into all of its parts. And there's a visible gap at every one of your joints. This is the common understanding of what's called the dissolution. If you take shamanic levels of psychedelics, your body dissolves. And I wrote it I put a very adequate description of this in the book, Brotherhood of the Afflicted, as this guy uses psychedelics to go search in that sparkly bit where consciousness and the event stream are right there. That's hyperspace. But anyway, so you take psychedelics, your body dissolves, and all that is left is your mind. Your mind will go through this multicolored barrier, and if you take enough of these drugs, and then you become a sphere on the other side of the life-death barrier in this very narrow width of it. Okay, and you can do things in there if you have adequate key energy and know what's going on. If you have some semblance of a mind still, and the psychedelics haven't totally erased it, but you do not have a body. Yet you can see, you can hear, you remember. You can't touch per se, but you do have a sensation of matter, almost, of being able to sit on something. But what you sit on is going to try and talk to you while you're sitting on it. So you got to be aware of that sort of thing too. Everything in the event stream is conscious, and everything wants your attention, and everything is talking to you. So most of the time, you're trying to shut all out the noise and concentrate on whatever it is you're trying to find.
Okay, very good.
I've seen that several hundred times. Okay, so I've journeyed on psychedelics. If I had to count them up, maybe 400 or 500 times.
And what was your first reaction to it?
Peace.
Peace. Wow.
Right. Once I took enough, okay, LSD doesn't get you there. Ecstasy, none of these synthetics. You can get there with some of the near DMT analogs, but they're very brief. But if I got there by mescaline, I took enough mescaline at one point to have achieved peace, and I was on like a 15-hour trip. And I came back, and I've never really been a candidate for depression since then.
I'd like to do a show with you on psychedelics at one point. There's more to.
No. If we took psychedelics, we wouldn't be able to do a show.
no, not on. Okay, yes, okay. On the subject of psychedelics, we could do a show later on. All right. We have a couple more segments for you guys tonight. We're going to be talking about language, the importance of language here, and how we use it, how we define the words of our reality. We're going to talk about also some of the graphs that Clif has put out here coming up in the next couple of months, and also the emerging patterns here. So 2 more segments to do. Before we do that, let's hear from 2 of our sponsors for tonight's show.
This is Ken Swartz with C60 Power. It was awesome seeing so many of you at the Beyond Mystic conference in Ottawa. Right now, I'm watching the Wacky Woo with my good friend Jean-Claude and Clif High. To celebrate this mind-bending journey towards the singularity, I'm offering 20% off all C60 Power products at shopc60.com, but only for a limited time. Just use the coupon code SINGULARITY at checkout. Now strap in, stay sharp, and let's get back to JC and Clif for some more woo-fueled wisdom.
Okay, not sure what happened there. We are in a Mercury retrograde. You could hear him, but we couldn't see him, so I'm not sure what happened. Let's give it a try here for Dorothy.
Hi, everyone. It's Dorothy here at purebulk.com. It was so nice meeting everyone in Ottawa at the Beyond Mystic Conference, the Woo Beginning. As a token of our appreciation and love for you all, we would like to extend the coupon code PureWackyWoo for another week. Please go to purebulk.com to place your order. Now, back to the show.
Okay, so you guys didn't get to see the graphics there, but Dorothy is talking about 20% off here on Pure Sleep. Pure Wacky Woo is the code. Go to purebulk.com. And of course, Ken was talking about 20% off also on the gummies and everything on the shop there at C60 shop, c60.com. And there, the coupon code is Singularity. Those will be in the links below as well. Below the video.
Let's stop for a second and divert both of those.
Yeah.
Pure Sleep does not screw over your pineal gland because it doesn't have melatonin. Your pineal gland is your connection to duration, what we think of as time. If you take melatonin, you wipe out a 365-day-a-year calendar that's built into your pineal gland that works on micro amounts of melatonin changing over the course of that time. So Pure Sleep was deliberately designed by me to not screw with the pineal gland, which is so necessary for your regular function. Okay, and then Ken's C60 does mitochondrial reconstruction almost. It rebirths those that are good and gives the bad ones the option to leave, right? And the mitochondria is the cell's connection to time. So both of these products are your connection into the ontology because doesn't distort the pineal gland, and Ken's does provide that connection at a very stronger level at the cellular level.
Very good. Guys, again, check the links down in the description box below. You can find those also on beyondmystic.net /shop. Now, let's get into language. Clif, you've been, again, I can't get to the other one. I'm not sure what's happening. Hold on. You've been very adamant with me over the last number of years about using the correct language during my shows. And sometimes I feel you're annoying. And then I realize, oh, shit, he's right. I have to be more careful. And as you grow in your awareness and you grow into self-mastery, language becomes more and more and more important. Now, speak about why the language here and the shift in language, both from officialdom, but for our understanding of our point of view in Materium, is also very critical at this point. And what would you like to share specifically about that, Clif?
Okay, so language comes from thought. So thought precedes action. Thought creates language. Language precedes manifestation. Your movement, your emotions, and so on and so on. Many people don't feel their emotions until they actually talk about them, right? They can't separate them out, that kind of thing. Okay, so language is important on a personal level, at a very personal basis. But language also frames our understanding. And so if we use the inappropriate words, right, then we frame ourselves in a gritology viewpoint. We don't see the ontology. If we say that intuition can be dismissed, we don't grasp what intuition is. And note that, Navy SEALs don't dismiss intuition. They teach the SEALs how to use it, right? And it keeps them alive and makes them very effective. So, so language is a framework in which we are interacting with the ontology. And the ontology is quite happy for you to be butthead and use gritology words and not see it, right? Because that's part of this. It's not interfering with the experiment, other than it does talk to us in this sort of larger observer effect kind of thing that it has running. We have to make some suppositions. We have to assume that it's trying to direct us in a meaningful way. And so our problem is that we've been trained by the gritologists to use words that are meaningless. There is no such thing as future. There is no day that's ever going to arrive here. Tomorrow never, ever, ever arrives. It's always today. It's always now. It's always this instant. It's always this eternity in which we live. And it is our mind that frames and slices things into these very unrealistic ways of thinking about things. So we have within the event stream, we have the emerging stuff from the event stream, and we have the manifestation in the materium. So the emergence causes the manifestation of the matter or the action or the energy flow within what we think of as our reality. We all interpret reality individually. Our interpretations are aggregated into what I call the common shared reality. And so you can go to a room where everybody's happy and they're having a nice party, everybody's drinking, they're a little sloshed on the alcohol, and somebody comes on in who's really, 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 really drunk. And all of a sudden your common shared reality goes to shit, right? And your party is gone, the party atmosphere is gone, because that individual brought their version of their reality into the common shared reality, and everybody had to share their version of reality to some extent, right? This happens with all different kinds of mental aberrations and bad moods and that sort of thing. The opposite can also occur, where you run into somebody who's just so bright and happy and cheery and boy, really perked up your whole day. You're glad you ran into that person because when you had that common shared reality with them, you were boosted by their energy coming in. So it makes a difference how we speak of things. So there is no future, there is no past. We have memory and we have anticipation. We have anticipation of emergence into manifestation of certain things. So a kid will be anticipatory of their birthday, as JC was. He was all anticipatory of his birthday, right?
No, I wasn't.
Well, no, you weren't
going to make a stupid surprise or something, and I was worried the whole weekend. But no, it was okay.
Still anticipation, okay? Right. How you interpreted the anticipation, that's your business.
Right.
But nonetheless, so the kid has the anticipation of the birthday arriving. It doesn't really arrive. Just one day that, or at some point, everybody gets up and they decide, okay, now is that day, and this is an anniversary of your birth. We use things like the astrology and the astronomy to keep track of all of this before we had the calendars and the smartphones and the watches and shit. That allows us to have a framework to discuss things meaningfully. We have to have this framework because we're in the process of discussing the ontology and the event stream. We have to change our language because the event stream does not really slice and dice itself into the way in which we think of time. The way I think of time is duration between this awareness and the anticipation manifesting, whatever it is that I'm anticipating, or the awareness of this particular instant and something in my memory that has been stored for me, right? And so that's duration. How far away am I from the conditions that created that memory? How far away am I from the conditions that are going to emerge with this manifestation? And so we need, and if you frame it that way, which is actually the way the yogis talk about it, and the Shinshin Soitsu guys, we talk about things in a different fashion because it doesn't limit our minds. And thus you find people that are in the woo frequently are highly creative because we don't allow ourselves to be confined by the barriers that are put on the minds of the normies with the gritology viewpoint. This is another thing in terms of the creativity that the Trumpetos are missing. Their gritology viewpoint has so many limitations in it. Oh, that's random chance. You didn't participate in that event occurring. That's just random chance. Never mind that bullet should have hit Trump in the ear, or that kind of a thing, right? Or in the head. But everybody's consciousness would not allow that. As I was saying, because I had to build my body back. Yeah. And I was lazy. I was weak. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to come back. But universe insists. The ontology says, fuck no, dude, get your ass out there. And, it made a deal with me. Exactly. And I told it, no, I don't want I told it specifically, okay, so I'm lying there and I'm up there in the ceiling as my body is lying on in the operating room. Horrific thing to watch your own surgery. Yeah. Even though I didn't have eyes, I'm watching it all, right? And so the greater self says, okay, you're going back now. And they, because they didn't have heartbeat. And so they give me the zap. And so I go back to the body for a second and I say, fuck this. And I head back up to my greater self. And then it said, okay, the first thing it said, you got to go back. You got meaningful work. And I said, screw it. I've done meaningful work, enough of that shit. I'm tired. I wanted to retire. I was 65. And then it said, okay, you got to go back. There's a chance that you'll have an opportunity to engage in a great battle. Too much trouble, right? Because I have to rebuild in order to fight. Right. Then the last thing was it said, okay, if you go back and don't give us any shit, you'll have the opportunity to experience love in your last years. And I said, okay, I'll go for that one. And then they threw me back 3 times. They zapped me, and then I stayed. But then the next 4 days were miserable. Anyway, though, so you can negotiate. You make deals with the ontology because you're part of it. It's part of you, and that shit actually happens.
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. Let's go back to some of the language shift here in our understanding of things. What would you say is the big effect of choosing and using the correct words on your experience of your own reality? How does it shift at that point?
If you were to think about something happening from a future, then you have a framework that says that this is presented and you have no control over it. Okay. If you understand that the manifestations that are occurring from the event stream are emerging, and because they're emerging into your consciousness, your awareness as they are emerging, you are actually participating in that emergence. From your perspective, they would not be there if you're not watching. It wouldn't emerge if you weren't watching it emerge, right? That's from your perspective. But that perspective is useful because in understanding that you're participating in the emergence of these things, then you can actually participate. You can engage in that emergence, and it becomes a better quality experience. It becomes a qualia, something in your life that the universe wants you to participate and know about.
At that point, you're no longer just a pinball in a pinball
Correct,
machine.
correct. You're playing the game, right?
Right.
So I know I'm a player because in 2008, well, because universe told me about all this shit, and I wrote the software. And then in 2008, I get the vision of Rogan and Trump in the interview. And since from then, that stream, I've been a participant, a player in that stream, right? And it was used to come up with the stuff, ahead of the drones by months, appearing ahead of all of this stuff at that point, because I was able to say that I'm participating in it. I know how this is going to occur. Now, the problem is, as always, is timing on all of this stuff. Language changes allows you to see the timing at a better level. It allows you to see a granularity that you can sometimes write down and laboriously figure out and get something really damn close. So I had the Trump assassination pegged to the weekend preceding July 15. It actually occurred on July 13. July 15 was a Monday. So 2024 here, right? And so the Trump assassination was something that I saw as a huge spike in the emotional values before it happened. I didn't know because of the nature of the way I was examining it, and that I was not really that into it at that stage, didn't have a huge amount of data, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how it would manifest, what that emotional spike was. But I knew there was going to be something. It met the criteria. It happened on July 13th, et cetera, et cetera. So understanding and using the appropriate language relative to the emergence of the event stream allows you to do things. Sometimes it's worth the effort to go through and do the labor to determine what may be the timing. Nowadays, having been through all of this, I take a different approach, which is like getting the framework of the events that may happen or could possibly happen out of like Vedic astrology, right? Because it allows you sort of a grid. You can say within this period of time, it's unlikely that a submarine is going to drop out of the sky and squash Trump, okay? That sort of thing, right? I mean, these outrageous kinds of things. But maybe in this other period of time, the astro actually would support a submarine falling out of the sky. This is just an outrageous example. But nonetheless, it gives you a framework for examining the potential field that could collapse into an emergence of the manifestation. And sometimes we can accurately guess, and that's really what it is sort of an accurate guess as to which manifestation will occur.
Now, would you say that understanding or using the correct language will also change not just your understanding of reality, but also your relationships in that reality? And if so, how does it do that?
Okay, because your consciousness and because language is a vibration within that consciousness, having that language within your head changes your conscious vibrations, which allows it to harmonize with the ontology such that you get more in the way of information out of it, or can actually alter the physical manifestations. So you remember the scene in the Matrix movie where Keanu Reeves gets the spoon and he's doing that at it and the spoon bends, right? That's changing his mind. He's not altering reality. And that's what the point of that scene was, to get the idea across to you. Everybody sees it as somehow you're sending out a ray out of your finger to cause the spoon to bend over. And all you're really doing is changing the vibration in your mind such that the reality presents to you the manifestation you wish to see. This is the idea for magic. This was the idea that, okay, so crude understanding, the Gritologists, the Pharisees, the Elohim worship cult understanding of things has people go out and take blood, urine, semen, and all this stuff, and they do spirit cooking, trying to alter the matter, alter the manifestation into the reality from the emergence of the event stream. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to use this matter in some kind of a potion that they think somehow will affect the emergence. What they're actually doing is their own consciousness, even though they're participating with the yucky matter stuff, it's their consciousness that's trying to influence the event stream. And that is their point of focus. If they were smart, they would do like Zen meditation where there's no matter involved. You just get your consciousness to the point where you can focus it. Anyway, and so it didn't work because other people, this last time they were trying to do this sort of thing. 9/11 was an attempt by the Gritologists, the Pharisees, to freeze time in order that we could have Obama and all of these kind of people. And it wore off. It wore off a lot earlier than they had anticipated. That's why they had to do the spirit cooking in 2016. That didn't work. They tried it again, and it didn't work because there were people that were out opposing it, that had sort of quasi-organized themselves into an opposition group. The ones that opposed it were very, very, very much more powerful than the witches that the Pharisees had employed with their crude forms of magic. So the crude magician will use grit. The sorcerer uses his mind, right. and it's ever so much more powerful, right?
There is no spoon.
Correct. There is no spoon. And, if you really think about it, you don't have a body. So anyway.
Right. Very good. The reason I was asking about that changing your language and how it changes your relationship is people might be fearful of that. Like, GC, I'm going to become like you, or I'm going to become like Clif. I'm going to be half-past human, and nobody in my life will understand me at that point. And to some extent, that is true. You might change your social dynamics if you change your language and you change your viewpoint of your reality. But the consequences of that, or the benefits of that, far outweigh any of your fears and trepidations. Explain why that is, though, Clif.
Okay, so it's basically in the expanding the ability to interact with the event stream. Okay, so you have more opportunity. If you have the appropriate language, as I did in 1997, I could say, what is this particular set that I was looking at buried deep within the financial stuff I was attempting to screen out, and what does it mean? And so because I had that examination idea, that curiosity about why this particular language should appear in financial stuff, I came across the idea of new money, which ultimately led to cryptos, which ultimately led to many millionaires. Yeah. Okay, so that single thought occurring to me in 1997 presented a forking of the event stream that multiplied out so fantastically, I could not keep track of it now. So many people have been enriched by being able to get in early on the event stream manifestation of cryptos. So it's a hugely powerful tool that I was led by the ontology to discover.
Mm-hmm. Heidi says here, 100% people that are not supposed to be in your circle will either leave or adapt and learn. Absolutely. Speaking of Heidi, Heidi has offered tonight to give away 30-minute Vedic astrology reading to all of you guys. So let's give away a prize here before we get to the last segment, Clif. And so this is, if you guys don't know Heidi, go check out the Heidi Come Back official music video. Joe and I produced with Steven, who is the voice there in the background a couple of years ago. You can find that on my YouTube. So a big thank you to you, Heidi, for offering that 30-minute session. Clif, do you have like a easy question with a one-word answer? We can look at the live chat here to give away the reading here for Heidi.
What's the basic thing we're undertaking a discussion of now?
Okay.
There's three possible answers, any one of them would work.
Okay. Okay, guys. While we wait for that to populate, of course, guys, if you're looking for the Clif notes for tonight, you can go to beyondmystic.net/singularity. And of course, if you're intrigued by all of this and you want to learn more, in a very, very cool book, you can find it here on Amazon. It's called Brotherhood of the Afflicted. I bought the Kindle version here just before the conference. We are going to be giving away 2 paperbacks today as well at the end of the show, signed by Mr. High. So stay tuned. There's a lot more. And of course, if you're looking for Clif's work, you can find him on his Substack here at Clif_High, and also here on his Twitter at Clif_High. Now, let's go back to the live chat here. You want to tell me to stop? You want me to just pick?
Yeah, you just go ahead and stop when the ontology moves you.
Right. I'll just say, there you go. Ada Price, ontology, and the woo. Is that good enough?
Yep.
You happy with
That's
that?
good.
All right. Ada Price, you're the winner. So if you go to beyondmystic.net, top of the page, just send me an email and I'll connect you with Heidi for that 30-minute Vedic astrology session. Again, a big thank you to Heidi. Really appreciate you giving that prize here tonight. Okay, so Clif, we still have to look at the emerging information or the pending emergence here. And before I do that, too, guys, if you go to that page, the Singularity page, I do have a link to that Grok conversation here where you're going to get all the details about the language we were just talking about. So I was slide through that a little bit quickly for you guys, but you can go there and grab the snapshots or go to the link there as well.
There's much more than just that about the language. It's a great discussion with Grok about the singularity, the event stream, all different kinds of stuff.
Okay, so food for thought here on the conversation tonight, to deepen or to satiate more of your appetite. All right, so there's a link, guys. You can go check it out. Now, a lot of people are tuned into the show tonight, Clif, because they want to know what the fuck is about to happen, right? That's the big question everybody asks us. That's why people are so interested in the tarot and the Vedic, and the astrology as well. You have a few charts also later on in terms of emotional values. We're in for some roller coaster rides here for the next couple of months. But what do you have here in terms of a pending emergence for the audience, Clif?
Okay, so this is actually an extract of the sets, okay? Extract of the primary, secondary, and tertiary descriptors for sets written out into tiny little paragraphs. Okay, so we're going to have these clumps of things appear, and these are the sets that are attached to the building and release tension in those charts.
Okay.
We can peg these to the charts, and you'll see how or why the chart seems to be influenced by these things that are occurring. We're going to get into aliens. This is going to be reasonably soon. All of these things are going to be mushed together, all emerging over what I've called the summer of emergence. The summer of emergence actually starts with the Saturn return to Pisces that is on March 29. Okay, that's like this Vedic transit thing that occurs. And from that point on, it was a convenient peg to put all this stuff to. And from that point on, we're into this morass of the emergence. We're into the event stream emerging. And what's going to emerge in the singularity is the concept of the ontology that we're discussing. Okay, so 2 years from now, a lot more people will understand this and they'll be operating their lives as ontologists. We may even see a religion pop up around ontology, as I referenced in my book, although it's not very likely that it will be accompanied in the same description that's in the book. Anyway, but these things will appear. 10 years from now, we won't have physics being operated on relativity, Einstein, or any of that. We will have leapfrogged all of that because of the benefits to science that the ontology presents. There's no need for constants in an ontological paradigm. Entirely new forms of math occur in an ontological paradigm that do not exist, cannot be seen in the Einsteinian relativity gritology. So these sets show that we're going to get into a lot of secrets revealed. We're still in the depth of that. All these sets emerge, and so the singularity is building upon hypernovelty, discontinuity, secrets revealed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It's a complexity of all of these things. And so
Now,
we're going to
just for clarity, Cliff, before you go too fast, at the top of the screen there, you have these next 2 years duration, and now you just talked about the summer also of manifestation or of emergence. Where do you plot these sets here in time?
Okay, so we can't, and I'll get into that. So we cannot at this stage see far enough out into the event stream to be able to say when emergence has been completed, so to speak. Okay,
Gotcha.
so I know it extends for at least what we would call the next 2 years of duration from this now. But it could extend much further if we're resistant. It could be ended a lot quicker if we accept it, this sort of thing. So let's look at an example in the real life. You had this huge emotional spike that flattened out really quick as everybody reacted in a very nice, positive way. Instead of getting into anger and retribution and all of that, they got into research and they started finding out what was actually going on and delving into the woo of it all, right?
And by the way, you had predicted that too. You said something's going to happen, and then for weeks after that, people were going to say, "What the hell just happened?" And they would analyze it from every angle, and we saw that from all the different YouTubers looking at the camera footages and all that stuff. So you had that pegged also. Keep going.
Okay, so the fact that we reacted that way caused the subsequent maturation of the event stream to take the results that it did. And it could have we could have reacted a different way, and we would have had an entirely different now that we're living in. So this matters. Our understanding really has a material impact on what manifests in the stream here, right? So we're going to get aliens. We're going to get the secrets revealed in the government. The government's going to start fighting among themselves in a much more open fashion that we see now. Holdouts to the Gritology, the Democrats, et cetera, are going to be like Japanese soldiers on the islands, fighting it out in Social Security or Homeland Security or whatever, trying to maintain and conserve the Gritology viewpoint. Because what's actually happening is that all of this stuff is pushing us towards this idea of singularity and the ontology. Why is this? One of the reasons, because there's bazillions of reasons for everything that happens, but one of the reasons is the ontology needs us to come up to speed in order that we can effectively talk to the aliens as they are presenting themselves to us over this coming period of time, and to be able to interact effectively with the various different kinds of nut job aliens that we're likely to run into. Anyway, so we're going to have all kinds of expressions of the energies involved. One of them is going to be kinetic culture war. Those people that are too stupid to grasp what's going on at a great level and that are going to react badly because they're going to react to their emotions that are going to be unsettled. And they won't have a framework that will allow them to put those emotions into a comfortable position. Being uncomfortable, they will act out. So we're going to have all...
These are loose cannons at this point.
Correct. Only there's tens of millions of them, right? Because we're talking about most of the normies are going to go through this really a hard shock trying to come up to speed, and it'll take them years to really grasp what's going on. About a quarter of them will never get it. And this is why we need to, in my opinion, this is why the ontology will provide an ontologically based religion, such that they can have comfort and they will have a framework that their minds will operate in without discomfort that they will feel otherwise.
Is that what Trump and his administration is struggling with? They're trying to find that before they get anything more to...
I don't think that they know that that is a solution. Okay. I think that what they're struggling with is trying to protect all of the one principle religions. Christianity, Judaism, Mohammedanism, all of that. They're trying to conserve and protect that, and it's not possible. The ontology has decided that the aliens are going to laugh at you fuckers for thinking that this is anywhere close to reality, and you guys had better come up to speed. And so I think that the ontology will provide an ontologically based religion from somebody's personal experience. In a weird way, I wrote something like this in the book, and it was a good plot device, etc. And a funny chapter, it's called the ultimate dick pic, that chapter. And so, it's a kind of a smutty book.
Don't send many dick pics, Cliff.
No more big log pictures. Nope. Back channel stuff, guys. Anyway, so we're going to get this. We're going to get this kinetic culture wars. All of these multiculturalism breaks down and people start really fighting each other. And we're going to get Reconquista, where the white people push all the Muslims out of Europe and out of Canada and Japan and all these different places. They're hoping somebody will go and just put a quick bullet in his head and be done with it. And that's actually what they're discussing on the Tor network. So that's very much baked in the cake at this point. The issue is the depth in which we can see ahead of manifestation. I've developed some mathematics around this. I have some perspective based on analysis. The wider view we're attempting to see, so the more information, or so if we're attempting to look at something at a national level, we're going to get a particular view that won't include a lot of details and will require a lot of guessing, okay? And the closer you get it to an individual perspective, like Heidi's going to do with somebody, you get much more accurate. You don't get a lot of this extraneous stuff out there. I have to work within the extraneous stuff because I'm trying to do this in a broad brush at a national level. So I don't get enough detail to be able to say that this will occur or that will, but this may occur in this larger context, and that's what we're looking at here. Okay, so we're going to get the pilots. It's going to affect the airlines because there's going to be a slop over, right? Problem is, it's not going to be limited to the United States. It's going to be happening all over the world, right? Okay, then the silver suppression.
Are they going to use this as camouflage to explain also why maybe those airlines are going down, maybe more for financial reasons, but they're going to blame this instead? Or
I don't know. It's all really muddied. Okay, so it's difficult to pick out any individual manifestations that would be meaningful that we could say were like sort of set in stone, that they pretty sure going to appear. Things are in such a, as the event stream picks up speed of manifestation, so to speak, it becomes a lot more chaotic, as you can imagine, and there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening.
Now, just sticking with the airlines and the plane crashes in the last couple of months, they seem to be accelerating. I had Jay Widener do a keynote on plasma during the conference. He was talking about how pilots are interacting with this plasma sometimes unknowingly, and that's causing havoc and crashing a lot of planes too. And we've seen that from military reports maybe over the last 10 or 20 years, and that seems to be accelerating. What, in your view, in the last couple of months also would explain all the plane crashes that we're seeing now, and how does that project into this summer to where perhaps some of these airlines go out of business or completely shut down for some reason, or we're closing down airspace? How does that all tie in for you, Clif?
Okay, so it's not settled yet in my conclusion as to whether or not this is a natural event. Okay, so it could be that we're having plane crashes as a result of electrical fields, EMF, acting inappropriately on these planes. So we've had Schumann resonances shifting around and jumping and that kind of stuff. So there's some potential that it could be that there could be an organic, natural thing that's participating in this, but it also could be somewhat deliberate. Okay, the elite do not want people to be flying one way at all. Okay, they want to own the jets, and that's it. If you're not an elite member, you get to travel 1,500 miles once every 3 years from your 15-minute city, right? So they could be attempting to engineer that over a long course of time. I can't eliminate that at this point, so I haven't come to a conclusion as to what's actually, what the why of it, right? I can tell you what's going to happen as these things do occur. The follow-on, just as with the Trump assassination, being able to see that weeks later we'd still be digging into this stuff. These kind of things, these broader social movements as a result of these events, are able to be seen. So once the pilots are doxxed, you're into an event stream that is pretty predictable to the relative to the pilots and what's going to happen with them, right? Once the doxing occurs, well, it's interconnected. As the populace makes those connections, then the officialdom has to basically admit it. We're driving all this now. Not the woo people per se, but all of the researchers online, et cetera, that have been trained by the Q effort and these kind of things. So the airline industry it's an interesting problem at the moment because, again, this is tied into the chemtrails, which goes back to the aliens, which also goes back to the money, the creation of all the fake or the illegal dollars from these machines that don't tie back to the treasury, et cetera, that have no reporting to officialdom for dollars created.
Just for the people who might not know this is mainstream news. Came out, what, 2 weeks ago now? We're talking about these 14 computers that are set and are creating money here that are not being accounted for. Can you just speak a little bit about that and how that is going to explode here perhaps in the next couple of weeks, Clif?
Yeah, so they found 14 computers that spit out, we don't know how much money. We do not know how much money these computers have created. There's no accounting for it at all. We know they've been operating for at least these last 4 years, and probably for many years ahead of the first Trump administration, totally unfettered. Okay, so they're just creating money. The issue is us citizens are paying through interest. We're paying a tax, so to speak, on that money as it is used. So this is an illegal tax because there's nobody accounting for that money. It doesn't come into federal spending. It's not guided by any of the laws, any of the programs, any of the funds. It's just some guy sitting at a computer in the Department of Homeland Security deciding to pay his cousin's dental bills, just boink, 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 and it's done. But he also buys himself a house. He also sends $5 million to some jihadi somewhere, this kind of thing. And it's never, ever hits the books. So we don't know that money's been created. So the total,
it's not just the taxes, it's also all the distortion in price valuations.
I was just going to say,
else.
So we've got a huge pile of money that is much bigger than we anticipate, hunting for those for goods, and so we have competition in currency. It's not money; it's currency for trying to buy the goods, and thus the price gets hiked way the hell up. And it's overinflated, and they use this money this currency to bribe people to be silent about the space aliens and all the reverse technology and all this other shit. So it is a terribleness. The problem is at this stage is that the doggy guys have not discovered the ones that run the black projects. They've only seen the ones that are like officially able to be got at. They won't be able to get their hands on the black project computers that are still doing this. So anticipate this part of the problem.
Now, this is part of an older WebBot data set, too, where you suggested when the money stops, all these secrets start coming out, too. So we're kind of in that time now.
The secrets revealed period, right. It's all interrelated. Aliens, money, all of it, right? Okay, so the issue for us is that there is somewhere between 100 times more dollars that have been created than are officially on the books, and maybe over thousands of times more dollars that have been created. So if there were 1 penny's worth of actual purchasing power in your dollar from officialdom, from their official books, it's less than 1,000th part of a penny actual purchasing power if we had to account for all of the dollars. And that's what the Doge guys are actually doing, is they're forcing an accounting on the currency. So this is going to collapse the currency, everybody to look at how many of these things had been created. This is probably that photo or that drawing that Dick Allgaier had done where the politicians are puking in the hallways because they understand that there's thousands of more times dollars out there than we can possibly accommodate in our system, correct? And so they're just going to vomit because it means that the currency has no confidence once this comes out, and everybody will abandon it as rapidly as they possibly can. During this period of emergence, over these next 2 years, the dollar will die 100%. So
guys, if you want more information on that, I know that Clif also posted a Substack. This one here, 1,000 times future. I believe it was in this one.
Yeah.
Another 40-minute there, going into a little bit more detail. So if you're interested in chasing this down a little bit more, go to his Substack here at Clif High. Okay, Clif, let's go back to the emergence page. Where was I? Where did I go? Did I just lose it? There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we can quickly get through this. The silver suppression ends, and that causes the total revaluation of everything, the collapse of the metals exchanges, the secrets revealed about who's got metal and who doesn't, because metal is the ultimate storehouse of wealth, gold and silver. And so when it happens, we're going to get towards something like Jim Sinclair had talked about in the year 2003, where he said that if we took the number of dollars that we think are created and divided it by the amount of gold above ground, each ounce of gold would have to be worth 82,000 Federal Reserve notes in order for there to be a balance. Now get this, Jim at that time in 2003 had no idea that we might be 1,000 times over what the officialdom reports in number of dollars. So if he were correct, and which should be 82,000, then these days, maybe it should be $8.2 million per ounce. Something astronomical like that, right? And so the system breaks at that level. Banks won't be able to accommodate this sort of thing. There won't be loans. There's a really good Vedic astrologer that is Heidi's mentor. This is Joni Petrie. She was doing some of this stuff, and she was talking about October coming up and the currency issues there. She's seeing it a particular way that I don't think it'll manifest that way, but there are these transits that are basically pointing to this summer and this coming fall that are coincident with those charts that I sent you. So the astrology is lining up with the building and release tension values, and whenever that happens, it's a very high level of probability that this potential will collapse in that fashion that we're describing now. Now, the very last thing that we've got down there, last two, is military bases are going to be in chaos.
Can I hold you for just a second here? Going back to silver suppression, gold prices, and everything else, the dollar collapsing. In the last couple of days, I got a ton of email. People are a little bit pissed off. Cliff is talking about Catherine Austin Fitts in a bad way. Can you address what you were talking about and why you disagree with some of, not her work necessarily, but some of her conclusions? Can you just quickly take 2 minutes to maybe readdress some of those people who are thinking that you're hating or beating?
No. Well, Catherine and I fight. I respect her, but we fight as like intellectuals. We have different viewpoints on the paradigm that we're presenting. She's seeing things from a gritology viewpoint relative to the accounting that she sees ongoing. And I'm seeing everything from an ontology viewpoint and basically saying that her concerns are not worth bothering with because they're going to be superseded. Okay, so she has certain viewpoints on cryptos that I don't think it matters. So what if it was DARPA that came up with the original white paper that was put out under the name of Satoshi? If it's basically like, all right, the federal government paid for the interstate highway system. DARPA needed that highway system for war. Doesn't mean I'm not going to use it. Just like with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a really good idea. You know, the digital scarcity, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't care if DARPA created it or not. It's not in their control. And these cannot be controlled. And also, by the way, it's absolute bullshit that any quantum computer could ever crack the encryption within Bitcoin. These are all mathematical projections coming from people, and they do not understand how quantum computers work. And a quantum computer does one operation in 24 hours. It answers one question in 24 hours because they have to reset the machine. So you can't crack anybody's Bitcoin algorithms one at a time doing that kind of stuff. It's just never going to manifest. So a lot of these concerns are being hyped on by the gritologists that see a particular view of the world. Just like Tom Longo, right? I like him. I respect his analysis of the markets. He's really brilliant on this kind of stuff. He's got a good memory for it, but his viewpoints are wrong. We're not in a 12,000-year destruction cycle. That's an inappropriate view of the spirals that are the yugas. The yugas are not a circle. We never, ever repeat. We're never going to have another mud flood. We're never going to have any kind of a catastrophe that has happened to Earth in the past because the ontology is not interested in redoing shit. It always moves us into something new because the point is the new manifestation. So their viewpoints are wrong. So so in my opinion, Catherine can't see my perspective because she has a gritology viewpoint, because she accepts that Einstein theoretically was right about relativity, even though he had to have all these constants as fudge factors, and that you can prove that his view is inaccurate by just examining the observer effect. So I dispute their underlying assumptions, not the individuals, but these underlying assumptions make them have certain conclusions that I say won't ever manifest, and I've been more accurate than they have over time.
I think also with Catherine, in the early days, she often explained, I remember some videos maybe with Greg Hunter on USA Watchdog, where she was saying that every time she was bumping up these hierarchical offices where she was chasing down the money, she would eventually hit on that ET wall. So she did explain that at the beginning, but right now what you're suggesting is that's not enough part of her viewpoint to have a better understanding of what's happening next.
Correct.
Okay.
That's very fair. You're right. So it's just the conclusion, not her research, not her accuracy, not her thinking, but her thinking is, as with all of us, is based on our underlying assumptions.
Right. Okay. Catherine, if you want to come on the show and explain your point of view, love to have you on anytime. Really appreciate your work, and we would love to share your points of view with the audience as well. Cliff, let's continue here with the politicians here. So this is a little bit stark, and again, maybe we should have prefaced this that Cliff is not inciting violence. He's not asking for violence or advocating it. He's predicting or he's anticipating, forecasting what's already in the data, as he's done many times before. So Cliff, let's talk about this a little bit darker piece here on what's happening with the politicians in the USA and Canada and the UK.
So we're just getting into it now. It's just recently come out. They've got evidence that Obama was money laundering through the Cayman Islands, getting all kinds of money from USAID and money laundering it for his own purposes. So he was a criminal, et cetera, and nothing us woo guys didn't know. But now the normies are going to know it. At some point, it will start occurring to people that there would be, especially in certain states, there would be no repercussions for going and looting one of Obama's houses. Okay, if you're black, you can steal and no one's going to do anything to you in California. If Obama had a house in California, you could go and loot it. He's not there. Nobody's going to give you any problems. This is what will occur to people, and this is what they will do. Oh, there's got to be some cool stuff in so-and-so's house. Oh, he's got a big mansion over here. And he's never there. I'm just going to go on over and break in and loot it, and let's see what happens, right? And they're going to do this in mobs because there's going to be a lot of outrage about the stuff coming out. $64,000 for hot dogs and pizza from Obama, right? So he looted the USAID money, and we paid for. And so that will come out.
It just came out the other day too that some of the money that was supposed to go for aid abroad was coming back to basically rent the riots here in the United States. There's that too. Like it's just getting worse and worse every day we look at this stuff. So
right, and so they could have, back to my original point, they could have jumped us to this point now just by arresting Obama and then laying out all of his crimes, instead of this dribble-drabble thing to try and get the normies on. All the normies would be in shock, there would be riots, etc., but we would have gotten to this point very rapidly. And in my opinion, the aftermath, the fallout from that would have been dealt with very quickly because of the nature of the event stream and the ontology at this point in time. People are not reacting the way they would 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 40 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a different time, and it's a different point in the manifestation of the event stream, and we have to grasp that as we go forward.
And this is are you looking at this summer, this fall?
This is the thing. It'll happen over this 2-year period of time. What happens at any given point is somewhat predictable in a broad sense as we get into the charts, but into the details, when Obama's house is going to be looted, I don't know, right? Bill Gates, when they're going to arrest him and when people are going to seize his farmland, I don't know exactly, but that's coming.
Okay. Just going back up here, a few people were asking in the chat about silver and the suppression here. Looking at this money printing, the perhaps thousands of times more dollars being printed that we know, looking at what we've seen so far in the bond market, some of the trepidations that are happening in the background, looking at Andy's prediction or presentation at the WU conference, suggesting that the United States have become net importer of gold and silver here as of October last year. There's pre-positioning happening for something here. Do you see that suppression in silver dying sooner rather than later? And talk about why you were saying $2,000 per ounce or $20,000 per ounce in that last Substack here for silver. Explain that first.
Okay, we'll go right through the $600 an ounce because of the fake money. And bear in mind, we have yet to get into those that are running the black projects suppressing alien technology, and that is thousands of times worse than the amount that has been looted, that kind of thing. So that thousands of times worse will blow us right through. Basically, it's going to come to this question. You have an ounce of silver. What will you take in the way of Federal Reserve notes to hand it to somebody? And that's going to vary widely based on circumstances, individuals, personalities, and the flow of things at the moment. But we will blow right through $600 an ounce, but there will be people paying that to get an ounce of silver. When we had the last brush up against the silver suppression in the 70s, due to the economics of that time, people were willing to pay $100 an ounce for silver. I knew several businessmen that were very thrilled to have been able to get 100 ounces or 200 ounces and stash them into a safe, and they paid $100 an ounce, and then the price collapsed. Jim Sinclair got brought in to, delever the Hunt brothers, all of that business. So it gets very complex. It's part of our complexity, and then the complications pile onto the individual parts in there. So we may see that Max Kaiser is a very small level of thinker with his understanding of Bitcoin at $250,000 sometime this year. It may be 2.5 million sometime this year based in Federal Reserve notes. In my book, I discussed the difference between the constitutional, I just brush across it, a constitutional dollar relative to cryptos as opposed to a Federal Reserve note, because we're going to have both in operations at the same time. That's the only possible solution, and the ontology is presenting that to us now, that the officialdom will understand this and they'll go along with that. That they'll keep the Federal Reserve note limping along as much as they are able to, whittling down the amount of extraneous ones, boosting it up, building the treasury back up, and so on, while they are attempting to produce a constitutional dollar that has in some way gold or silver backing. Once they do that, we may have a tenfold split. So it might be 2.5 million for a Bitcoin, but only 250,000 for a Bitcoin if you're buying it with constitutional dollars.
Right.
But if it's a Federal Reserve note, nah, I don't want those things.
Right. I remember that was in the data maybe 10 years ago. We were confused about why the price was going down suddenly, but it was had to do with a stronger dollar being introduced into the mix at some point. It appears we could be there. Okay, the military bases also were in the Webbot data quite a few times. Now it seems that we're at that stage now where we're bringing people home, but there are also maybe some looting happening. Is there as well? That leads also into more secrets revealed. Cliff, go ahead.
Right. So this is going to happen both here and abroad. So we're going to have people in the military here as the dollar breaks down this fall. The currency breaks down. We'll have people that decide they can't make it on what the military is paying them, and they'll just not show up. They're not away without leave. It's going to be sort of a mass exodus kind of a thing. And so there'll just be maybe 30 or 40% of the military that decides they're not going to show up because they're not being paid enough to and there isn't enough supplies, et cetera, to do anything effectively. And they'll try and go and make a way for their lives as that job sort of leaves them. They're not leaving it so much. But we'll also have people that will loot the military bases and try and sell the material just to get something to survive on. Just as we'll see the scientists in the deep dark holes come out lugging gear to sell because they're going to need some form of an income. As we get into this, it's going to be that chaotic. It does not have to be. This is still out far enough that the officialdom could do things now to derail these more extreme aspects of it, right? But they don't appear to be aware of their dwindling window of opportunity on some of these, nor that there is existent a way in which they could do this. Yeah, it's okay, guy. I'm gonna have to get the dogs out in a minute. Okay. But so it's going to be a real problem for everybody, okay? And it'll be tens of millions of individual solutions as everybody runs into the same essential problem of the currency collapse and the fact that that point that officialdom is backward looking. They're not able to keep up with things. They're trying to react to yesterday's crises when today's is just showing up on them. And that's really my fundamental bitch about their gritology viewpoint, is that it's always going to be backward looking, and they need not live that way. We lived by seeing ahead and thus got the crypto advantage, et cetera, right?
Right. And pirates emerge. You're going to find your floaty RV and go fishing on Mars, Cliff?
Well, no, there's no fish on Mars, but I'm going to go and seize that floaty RV, because here's the thing. Even if you go and ask Grok, so if there's a corporation out there running a black project using, and it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, as Dr. Stephen Greer has pointed out repeatedly, then if I go and seize one of their alien reproduction vehicles, go in with a crew and we assault their base and we take it, there isn't fuck they can do, because we at that point become as strong as any nation state in our little UFO, right? Because we can zip around, they can't chase us, they can't see us, they don't know where the hell we are. We can go and hide on the other side of the moon for that. And we can do pretty much anything we want relative to that. There's no level of enforcement. So they can have all the edicts that they want saying, oh, you violated the law by stealing this, which was illegally created and unconstitutionally created. And that corporation can still try and assert some level of legality over it. But the fact of the matter is, without enforcement, without force, there is no law. If you can't enforce it, it's not a law.
Right.
So pirates are going to emerge, and they're just going to take what is necessary.
People are asking in chat too, does Clif's data address the housing market? You did in one of those
Yeah,
last
yeah.
videos.
We're going to get into that with the charts, but we're going to have to jump to those right now because I'm going to have to get these guys out in a few minutes.
Does it take long? Do you want to do that first? I'll run.
It's raining like hell. It'll take at least 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, so let's try to get through the charts then. So let me go back to the placeholder. Hold on. There you go. No, this one. Where did it go? Let me do that again. Sorry, I left the page. There you go.
So housing market. Okay, so the housing market is going to crash in a serious way, but this is good because at some point it's going to be basically a devaluation. Okay, so houses that are right now $3 and $4 million will drop down to maybe 300,000, but in constitutional dollars, maybe it'll be 30,000. That's the kind of thing we're looking at. That level of huge impact, but it's not going to be good because you won't have a whole lot of. Okay, there will be individuals that will be working in the new technologies, zero-point technology, space alien reproduction stuff. They will have incomes. They will have the ability to buy things as our economy converts over to the zero-point technology under the ontology paradigm. This is going to be difficult, tedious, complex, and slow at the beginning. It'll rapidly jump up as more and more people, every person that comes on in adds to the power of that, and it starts incrementing out very fast. But the housing market is going to go through some real problems. I'm going to buy because I need the house. If I were smart, I would wait until October or so. In our charts, it shows these major spikes in that period of time that are related to currency. This is also backed up by the Vedic astrology transits. And it appears within the charts that that's the point at which we get into the downward slide on the price of housing, cars, everything. In the last Great Depression, there was a period of time where there was a photograph taken of this guy standing in front of a Bentley car that had just been brought over from England less than a year. It was $25,000 to purchase that car, and he bought it for a stack of silver dimes. So, you know, that's the kind of valuation things we're going to get here as a result of this.
Okay, let me bring up. Do you want me to do the weekly chart first, or the?
Let's do that one. Yeah, that's the easiest to understand. Okay, so first off, note that today was 34 on this building tension scale. Also, this we have to have the qualifiers. This has no Asian language in it. It has no Hindi or Pali in it, so it's missing a big chunk of the languages. But this is good because it has basically Western republics and Russia and the Baltic republics, etc., in terms of a language base for this forecast. You remember all of that excitement, everything. Yeah. On this chart, that would be 54. Okay, so that big spike then is only a 54 here, and we get into 54 right in the first week of April.
Yeah.
Saying I've been talking about the end of the first week of April as being this particular little bumpy threshold, and there we're into it. By the time we get into October, you can see, well, July is when we get into the space aliens, June and July. Okay, and we really start jumping up in there, right? Yeah. Bear in mind, the intention of today, all the happenings today, the plane crashes, everything, was a 34. And so we're looking at this kind of tension sustained because it's going month after month after month. It's the emergence of the event stream piling on and piling on and piling on, and the fracturing and more decisions piling on, et cetera, as we go forward. By the time we get into October is when we see a lot of the currency stuff. And we're getting up into reaching beyond my scale, right? So it jumped over the scale. And we're getting into that level. So this is our anticipated future. Now, this is not baked in stone. Okay, it's not baked in the cake. It's not chiseled in stone. If we were to do things in April, we could make decisions in April that would totally remove these big peaks in October. We could do things in April that would cause circumstances such by the time we got to October that the crises that are showing now would not exist.
Dare I say we could flatten the curve? in a good way this time.
In a good way. I don't think that that's actually what would occur that way, right? We would change it. We're not going to remove the amount of energy coming in. We would shift its focus. And shift it to a different form of a manifestation. So, and also building tension is building tension. You can have happy building tension, oh, my birthday, right? Or you can even have happy release. Oh, phew. So it's not a for sure badness, but it is for sure very elevated emotional reactions. Mostly with humans, those are not good. You get a bunch of us monkeys really hopped up and hyped up, and we're likely to be throwing shit at each other, right?
Right. So tumultuous 2025, hence strive to survive 2025. You spoke about that already a couple of months ago. Cliff, we had a lot of things we wanted to achieve tonight, but I think two major fronts. One, you wanted to share with the audience members, give them a little bit of an understanding of what was ahead of them to help them navigate. So I'm going to ask you for your words of wisdom on that, based on the information you've put out tonight. And two, you also wanted to speak to officialdom, to say, hey, we're not your enemies, and there's ways perhaps to avoid some of these big spikes coming up. So let's speak to officialdom.
Yeah, let's speak to officialdom first and just simply say we're not the enemy. We're quite helpful. You won't want to hear what we have to say, but if the appropriate person were to come and talk to us, a great deal of understanding could be transferred to that appropriate mind. But if you're going to send a physicist that's, understands only grit, it's not going to do any good, right? Just basically that's the only point to get across. Officialdom may actually come and talk. There is some hints within the event stream that this may indeed occur. And it would be great if it did, because we could potentially flatten these things out or change the focus such that it's not negative building tension, it's good building tension. Because if we did things right, we could have a big boom in the housing market in October as prices are falling, but nonetheless, we have real value being exchanged for them, that kind of thing, right? Which causes the economy to grow, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Okay, and now let's speak to the audience about navigating this, hopefully understanding that this was an adult conversation, that we are bringing critique, but also for our highest good, in terms of giving us clarity and maybe solid planks here as best we can as we're walking into this woo beginning here. What would you say to the audience before we go, Cliff?
Okay, so if you brought up the daily, you'll see how choppy it is on a day-to-day basis, right? Because the weeks are just the averages. They're just aggregated averages. If we look at the daily can be split down into hours, minutes, and so on. And you see how outrageously erratic it appears at this level. This actually replicates a lot of the kind of imagery that we saw in the slides earlier with the energy involved. It's all energy. So if you as an individual are participating and are being affected by all of this, your energy feeds back to you by how you interact with it. So if you give the ontology shit, the ontology is going to give you shit back, right? But if you're paying attention to it, it will guide you to a better outcome, a better understanding, and you will make better choices, and the result will be better for everybody, because the event stream is not independent. Everybody's event stream, every decision you make participates in your karma, but also the collective karma and the smaller groups of collective karma, your family, etc., right? All the way up to your nation, up to humanity. So it's all one giant complexity, and we actually can actively, dynamically, with forethought, participate in the manifestations. And these kind of charts can help you do it. They're not set, they're not a map for your life. They are a potential they are an understanding of the field as seen from this moment out that far. Okay, but as this moment changes, as our understanding changes, obviously that all changes as well. So if I were to redo these charts a week from now, we won't get this same outlay.
Right.
Unlike things like astrology, right? Because those are bigger things than us. Those are planets. Right.
Wow. Thank you so much, Cliff, for your time here today. I'm going to give away the 2 books. You can go if you want now.
The dogs are just, they've got to get out. Somebody's going to pee on the floor. It's either going to be them or me.
And very quickly before you go, explain why your book, The Brotherhood of the Afflicted, is really a companion to navigating the woo, and what's next after this one, Cliff?
Okay, so The Brotherhood of the Afflicted is the first in a series of 5 books. It sets the stage. There are things that carry from one book to the next in order to give you a more comprehensive overall view of our universe. Like all science fiction writers, I am creating a universe within these books, only I'm actually modeling our real reality with the ontology. It's just I'm presenting it as science fiction because the Gritologists don't allow that the ontology even exists, okay? Right. And so the second book is underway. I'm not going to get into the titles and stuff on it because I don't want those stolen. There's, you know, the grifters and the ripoff artists, etc. But this is a maturation of the characters as they go forward, encountering all the things that we will encounter over these next few years. So you will find references within these books that may actually match the future you're living in a year from now, 2 years from now, etc. You may see things in these books that I wrote about because I saw them within the data.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Clif.
Sure.
Sir, you are a scholar and a mentor to not just myself, but everyone here on Beyond Mystic. Thank you so much for being here. Clif, live long and prosper. You take care of your
universe provides and guides.
I'm going to go give away your books now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, JC. I'll see you. Bye.